Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Alleluia. Open our hearts, O Lord, to listen to the words of your Son. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus left the district of Tyre and went by way of Sidon to the Sea of Galilee into the district of the Decapolis. And people brought to him a deaf man who had a speech impediment and begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him off by himself away from the crowd. He put his finger into the man's ear and, spitting, touched his tongue. Then he looked up to heaven and groaned and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, his speech impediment was removed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them not to, the more they proclaimed it. They were exceedingly astonished and said, He has done all things well. He makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. The Gospel of the Lord. It's really remarkable in the book of Genesis how what we hear written about there is something that is very true that happens to the present day. You know, Genesis, I don't remember the exact dates it was written, but certainly around 1000 BC or maybe before that. And yet there's something that's so true about the human experience that hasn't changed from then until now. And don't quote me on that date. I might be off by plus or minus 1,000 years. I think I'll be safe if I say that. But in any case, what we hear especially today is something that's so true in each of our lives, the reality of temptation and the way that the devil tempts us to sin too. Is exactly the same as what happened in the Garden of Eden. The devil hasn't changed his tactics much. And when we hear them and see them, then we're able to more greatly, with the grace of God, resist them. So what does the devil do? Well, of course, God had commanded that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Adam and Eve should not have eaten from it. And so, that should have been enough for them, right? If God commands that you should not do this thing, then we shouldn't do it. But the devil gets them to start thinking about it, to start breaking down that barrier, that boundary by saying, doesn't it look good to eat? And also questioning, is it really true that if God said you eat this thing that you will die? And so we see that Eve and Adam, they engage in this dialogue with the evil one. And of course, they get sucked into the reality, or to the sin that is theirs. It's the way that the devil works in each of our life when it comes to sin too. He tries to, something that's forbidden from us by God for the sake of our good, so that we could have health and life and joy. He starts to make you question it. Will it really be as bad as God makes it sound? If you give in to it, will you really die? Will you really be harmed by this sin? And doesn't it look good? Won't it take away some of the pain if you just, let yourself go in a spout of anger or something like that? Whatever it is, wouldn't it feel good to do that or look good to do that? And so he kind of leads us down that path of temptation, and the longer that we stay in it, the more likely we are to give in. The devil's way of temptation hasn't changed much, and for us, important for us just to resist from the very beginning and to trust in God's goodness and in his plan for us, knowing that what God commands is always for our good, always to bring us the fullness of life and joy. So may we be like Mary rather than Adam and Eve, Mary who was always ready to resist temptation and follow God's plan. So